Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here. Obviously, as preppers, we like to stockpile food, water, talk about scenarios, all those things that preppers talk about. But sometimes we need to talk about those things that people don't want to talk about, and it's very uncomfortable. Because people have this extremely wrong idea, by the way, when it comes to crap hitting the fan. Because right now, you spend a lot of time maybe sitting down and putting your cans on shelves, everything's happy. It's going to be completely stressful and insane. And when it comes to your diet and what you're eating, it's not going to be like it is now. So make sure you go through the video. I'm going to go through stuff, especially as a doctor. I'm going to explain to you why certain preps may be the best preps for you and which ones may not be, and go through it. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about, and please don't shut it off. I know as soon as I say these words, people will. You need to get in shape. You need to stay in shape. And the thing is, this is not like a judgment on you. I mean, it's not a judgment on anybody. I need to be in better shape myself. I think that's a quest for all of us. It's something you've heard. I'm sure you have. So it's up to you to make sure that happens. But being in shape really is the key. And I want you to understand that if crap hits the fan, being in shape, not getting in shape during that time, but being in that shape is incredibly important. So you need to develop a lifestyle now to make sure that you actually get in shape and stay in shape. Getting started, however, is exceedingly difficult. And that's what I'm going to focus on because honestly, I'm sure you've been going through times in your life where you're like, I'm going to start getting in shape now. And when you try to shoot for getting in shape, it fails and it collapses. I mean, let's be honest, the majority of Americans are some type of obese or overweight. And it's a epidemic per se that we're having. And you may be in that category. So I want you to stick through this video and listen to me, because I may say some words on here that literally may help you get into shape finally, to the point where you're like, oh, it's actually working. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm going to ask you, how many times, put it in the comments below, have you started some type of exercise routine and it lasted for a couple days, few days, and you're like, I just can't do this anymore. That's why gym memberships have a year-long thing. They want you to, they know that if they do it by month to month, nobody would be in there. I mean, very few would be. Okay, I've talked about many, many times that carbohydrates are the evil thing in life. Carbs make you fat. This is not speculation. This is a medical fact. Carbs are what make you fat. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. You could literally take a can of fat, warm it up in the microwave. Well, hopefully you don't do that with a can. Eat the fat, drink it, whatever. That'll never make you fat, by the way. Super gross, but that'll never make you fat. Carbs will. And that's what we have in the American diet, is so much carbs. Go to the grocery store. Carbs, 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 because it's cheap. It's easy, it preserves well, and the manufacturers of food know it tastes really good too, so they stuff so many things with carbs, and you taste it, you're like, this is delicious, but it's not good for you, because those excess carbs will make you fat. And this video is going to tell you why and how you can overcome this. Okay, let me explain how your body works, and more appropriately, how your cells work. Because even though we're a body, and I have a mind and a brain, and I love doing these things, and I love skills and hobbies, and I love my family, and we're more than the sum of just our parts. Our body's made up of trillions and trillions of individual little cells. They work together in combination to make organs and stuff. But I want you to understand, when it comes to your cells, inside our cells, we have little tiny organs. They're called organelles. And there's one specifically I'm going to talk about called the mitochondria. Okay. This is not going to be like on the test. You don't have to take notes. Just, I want you to understand how this works. The mitochondria, when I taught nursing school, I called it the mighty mitochondria. Most books call it like the powerhouse of the cell. In short, it is actually what makes your cell have energy. And since we're all of our individual cells, it's what gives you energy. So those times where you're like, wow, I've got so much energy today. Thank you, mitochondria. I appreciate that. Or other times you're like, oh, I'm trying to work out and I just have no energy for it. Thank you, mitochondria. It's the mitochondria that does this for you. It literally, its job is to take carbohydrates and turn them into energy. Now, energy-wise, I want you to think of it this way. It's kind of like a rechargeable battery. You know, go ahead and pick like a AA battery. It's rechargeable. And the AA battery, in real life, it's called adenosine triphosphate, or simply ATP. That is the energy unit for our body. So just think of it as a battery. We take carbohydrates and use the carbohydrates and burn them. That's the term we use. And send it to a process where we charge up our batteries. Then those batteries can be used for anything, metaphorically speaking. It can make your brain, when you have thoughts, that's what it does. It uses ATP. When your muscle contracts, ATP. Your digestive system digests, ATP. Think of any action in your body. I mean, countless actions and reactions. Thank you, ATP. There are some other size batteries too, but ATP is really the one. So simply put, the mitochondria takes carbs and uses that carbohydrate and turns it into charging up your batteries and gives you energy. Okay, simply put, that's how it works. But again, you are your cells, and the more mitochondria you have, the more energy it produces with this, the more energy you have as an individual. And that's actually the important part here. Because there's times where, you go through cycles in your life, seasons, and maybe you have a season where you sit on your couch a lot and you're like, oh, I have just no energy. And you're like, I need to start working out. And so you'll get up and you'll head out and you'll go for a jog. You make it like 30 yards down your road and you're like, okay, that's good for today. And you go home. And in reality, by the way, you'll feel good. You're like, that was actually really fun. Why don't I work out more? Day 2 comes around. You're like, oh gosh, I don't want to do this. And maybe even force yourself with day 2, but you don't like it. Day 3, you're like, forget it. It was a lot more pleasurable sitting on the couch. Why is that? Well, understand that when your body doesn't do anything basically in excess. So in other words, if you're having a lifestyle of sitting on the couch all the time, you don't need a lot of mitochondria. The mitochondria that makes their energy from carbohydrates, it's like, why? Why would I make all this energy for you if you're just sitting on the couch? And you do have some in reserve, by the way. You always will. And the reason being is, let's say you're sitting on the couch and a robber comes in and breaks in your door and you're like, and you start getting all excited and your heart starts racing and you suddenly have all this energy and you run that 30 yards down the road. It was enough to get you out of the emergency, but you just depleted up all your batteries, all your energy. And so now you're in the slow process of making more. And since your cell only has like one mitochondria, I mean, metaphorically speaking, you always have more. But since you only have one of those right now, it doesn't make a whole lot. It'll take a while for you to recharge your system. And that's why after a couple of days of working out, you're not used to it. You're like, forget it. I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. So let me give you a quick story to help you understand this. I teach martial arts, and I literally had a student come in just the other day. And he's not brand new. He's been there for a few months. And of course, I have all my students go through an exercise routine. It's not really long or rigorous, but they go through exercises and it warms them up so that way they learn how to kick and punch. They're not going to pull a muscle, but also gets them in better shape. And they have to do push-ups, good old-fashioned push-ups. And so this one student comes up to me and said, sir, and I said, yes. And he goes, I'd like to ask you if I could not do push-ups anymore. And I mean, granted, the entire class, we're talking about dozens of students in there, and he just doesn't want to do push-ups. I'm like, why? And he goes, they're too hard for me to do. And I said, oh, I know, but that's the key. That's the important part, because you'll never grow unless you challenge yourself. If you want to make push-ups easier, then do push-ups, because the more you do the push-ups, the more muscles you build up, and therefore they'll become easier. I said, look, there's kids in here who are younger than you doing the push-ups, but you don't want to do them. And he goes, well, they've been here for a while, a lot longer than I have. And I'm like, that's my point. They've been here longer than you, straining to do the push-ups more. Now it becomes easier. I want you to see that that's the direction you're heading. It's hard now, but you're never going to be able to do push-ups unless you just start doing push-ups like every day. And by the way, there's certain exercises you can do every day that'll keep your body in really good shape. And push-ups are one of them. Really good things. A minute of push-ups a day, a couple other exercises too. And talk about that in a different video if you want. But anyways, I said, I'm sorry, sir. If you're injured, that's a different story stuff. But no, you'll be doing push-ups. And you can see it's a kid thing. He was like, okay, darn it. It was worth a good try. And I'm like, okay, off you go. But here's the thing. It's all about having the energy. And I granted his muscles weren't there for building up, or to do the push-ups. But if you start building them up, the push-ups get easier. I remember this when I joined the military in boot camp. I had to be able to run, it was forever ago, like 2.5 miles in a certain amount of time. I could easily do it. And then what amazed me is we'd go out running every single day. After the first week, I was up to 3 miles, 3.5 miles, 4 miles, 4.5 miles. I was like, wow, it blew my mind how fast your body can acclimate. Granted, I was just a kid, but how fast your body can acclimate and you can really start running far. Eventually, I was running road races. I loved it. They're a lot of fun. Okay, so anyway, here's how it works. You're tired. You're sitting on the couch. My favorite sport right now is drinking my iced tea and watching TV. And now you want to get in some exercise because you want to be fit for crap hits the fan. So you go out running. You run that 30 yards. You're like, I'm tired. Feel good, but I'm tired. You go home. The next day, you need to go running again. And the next day. And the next day. And your body, what it does is like, oh, you just went running real quick. Here's all the energy, but that must have been a robber. And so I'm not going to make any more mitochondria for you, because obviously you're going to go back to sitting down, and that's what people do. That is like the American way. but you're going to keep it up. And every day you start running. It doesn't have to be running, obviously. We'll talk more about things you can do. It's not just running. That's just an example. And you go out running the second day, start running the third day, and the body's like, I need more energy. So it starts producing more mitochondria in the cells that need it. So again, just metaphorically speaking, your cell had one mitochondria in there, but it knows you need more energy. You have the carbs coming in, so I'm now going to have 2 mitochondria, and then 3 mitochondria, then 4 mitochondria. It'll start growing more because now you need the energy. But getting to that phase of like going through a month of trying to get better and better, it's going to struggle for you. It's awful. This is why people stop exercising. It's awful. But if you can make it, and by the way, a quick medical thing for you, if you can make it 28 days with your human body, that's usually how long it takes to acclimate to a new process, to a new habit. 28 days. 28 days. It's a really good number to think of. Some people, it varies a little bit, but 28 days. So now, 28 days, I'm going to go running every single day, or whatever exercise you do for 28 days. At the end of the 28 days, your cells are loaded with mitochondria, loaded with them, because now you have the energy. But here's what's cool about that. You ready? So now you get up in the morning, you go running. I've been doing this for over a month now. I feel great. Those mitochondria don't go away after you're done running. All throughout the day, you now have tons of mitochondria taking those carbs, burning it into energy, and therefore burning calories. Even if you're not running, the carbs are still doing their job, making energy, because it knows this person's running all the time or doing whatever exercise they do. So all day long, you will burn the energy. So what does that do for us? Carbohydrates do 2 things for us, by the way. Number 1, they're used the mitochondria to make energy. That's what we've been talking about. But the second thing is, it will make you fat. So if you're sitting down and you eat, so many grams of carbs every single day, if you sit around all day, it doesn't need hardly any of them for energy, but it needs a lot of them for making fat. So any excess it doesn't use for energy, it stores it as fat. And that's why you sit around all the time. You get fatter and fatter because of the carbs. But now, if you start using more energy and you have this much left over, you're going to have more or less fat production. But you may get to a point where it's not going to produce any fat at all, or in fact, even burn your fat, because that's why your body does it. I have all these extra carbs. Let's make some fat. And that way the fat can be broken down to make more energy later. That's why you get fat sitting around. So the more you start exercising, the more that's burned into energy. Even if you're not exercising that day, you're still going to be working energy. So it's the less fat produced. And that's why you're always active. Remember when you were like 18 years old, always had energy. You didn't gain a single pound. You're always doing really well because you had tons of mitochondria. It's really that simple. All right. So here's what it comes down to. And here's the important part. This is where the prepping part comes in. People say, and they're indeed correct, that crap hitting the fan is going to be really difficult. You're going to have a lot of energy to be able to survive what's coming, because it's not going to be sitting on your chair. Even if your house, you can stay in your home and you're bugging in and you're now protecting everything here, not going off to work anymore, you're still going to be burning a lot more energy just preparing things and standing watches or whatever the case may be. You know what? We can fill in a lot of blanks with that. So they'll tell you, make sure when you actually stockpile food, and you'll hear preppers say this, to make sure you stockpile a lot of extra food that have extra carbs in them, because you'll need the energy when crap hits the fan. You ever heard that before? It makes sense, doesn't it? But think about this. If you're that person who is sitting around all the time and your cells only have 1 mitochondria in there, it doesn't matter how many carbs you give it, you're not going to be making the energy. Do you see the problem there? It's not about how many carbs you're eating if you don't have a way to burn those carbs into energy. This is a very dangerous situation. So in your mind, if you think, well, I don't really work out now, but when crap hits the fan, I'm going to start working out all the time. Oh, yes, you will. But you're going to be going through that 30 days or that 28 days of struggle trying to get there. During that time, this is how much energy you're producing. This is how much fat you're making. And now through your stockpile, you're eating even more carbs. You're going to actually gain weight and become fatter during the circumstances. I want you to understand this. You're going to become fatter. And I will tell you, there's nothing worse as far as dangerous for you than during crap hits the fan, here comes this really plump fat person walking down the street. You're going to be an easy target, but they're going to say, look how chubby you are. You must have lots of food in your house. It's not really you have extra food, but you're eating a lot of carbs and you're not doing anything to burn those carbs. That's a big problem. So the first days are going to be the worst, by the way. Crap hits the fan. It's going to be chaos. and you're right at a point where you only have one mitochondria, you're going to barely have energy to do anything. And that's the dangerous part. And that's the moral of the story. Because before it happens, you need to start exercising. Exercising every single day. Now, real quick, people will say you're not supposed to exercise every day. Oh, no, you are. For cardiovascular, every single day. If you're like muscle building, no, that's not every single day. That's every couple days. But for cardiovascular, you should be doing something cardio every single day. I don't run much anymore. I still run a little bit. I love to run, but I'm big time into martial arts. Fantastic stuff. That may not be you. You may have mobility issues. Swimming, walking, those are fantastic things. Those are things that you can do. Maybe you actually just need a recumbent bike to get on and basically bicycle to burn that energy. But either way, you need to make it so your cells have more mitochondria, because when that time comes, if you wait until crap is hitting the fan, the first few days, you're not going to make it. Even just the first few days, that's what's going to need the most energy. And since you don't have mitochondria, you're not going to have that energy. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.